So today we're going to talk about solving triangles and which law, the law of sines or the law of cosines, do we use to calculate what's asked for with the given information. In other words, sometimes we're just going to be given information and we're going to be asked maybe to solve the entire triangle, which means to solve for the missing side and the two missing angles. So let's say we have this example. One side is 7, the other side is 8, and the included angle is 40. And let's say we're asked to find the missing side and both missing angles. That's really what it means to solve a triangle, just to fill in all three sides and all three angles. Well, if we're asked to solve this triangle, this is how I want you to approach this. And it'll make things a lot easier and it'll make your thoughts more organized. Let's set up the chart like I've showed you in the last couple of days to set up, which means we're going to set up, I call it an ABC chart, depending on what you want to call your triangle. Let's call this triangle ABC. We usually call it that. It doesn't have to be, but we can. And 8 is little a, C is 7, and we don't know what little b is. So we can fill out this chart with the ABC information that we know. And because this is not angle, or angle, side, side, or side, side, angle, this is not an ambiguous case. Not ambiguous means it's not side, side, angle given, like it was yesterday or in yesterday's video. So that means we're only going to complete one chart. So angle A we don't know, angle B is 40 degrees, little a we know is 8, and little c we know is 7. So what law do we use? Well, there's a little trick. And if you want to use this trick, you can. Some people like tricks to figure out what law or what formula to use. And here's the trick. Hopefully you're listening to the video or the audio part of this. If you can connect the row, if there is information in an entire row, in other words, if there is a big A and a little a, or if there's a big B and a little b, or if there's a big C and a little c, all completed in one row, if that's the case, then what we've just drawn is the letter S. And the letter S stands for the law of sines. So what we have in this particular case is we don't have an entire row filled. We don't have a big A and a little a both. We only have one. We don't have a big B and a little b both. We only have one. We don't have a big C and a little c both. We only have one of the two. So that means we're not going to use the law of sines, this letter S. And this is just a trick. You don't have to use it. Maybe you can remember that if you have side, angle, side, then you use the law of cosines. So not law of sines because of this S not being completed. So we must use law of cosines. If you haven't noticed, the law of cosines is a little bit more involved. So we must use law of cosines. Okay, the law of cosines says we're going to find this missing side. So let's say we're trying to find b. b squared is equal to a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of big B. All right, we couldn't use the law of sines because the law of sines says a over the sine of a equals b over the sine of b, and we would have two missing pieces of information. So we couldn't use that. So we have to use the law of cosines. So let's just calculate that out. B squared is equal to 8 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 8 times 7 times the cosine of 40, making sure our calculator is in degrees mode, always. 8 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 8 times 7 times the cosine of 40, and take the square root of that, and b is equal to, let's round it to the nearest tenth, b is equal to 5.2. So we've got 5.2 in there. And now that we have a complete row filled in, we have a big B and a little b, we can use the law of sines to compute angle A. And we can use the law of sines to compute angle C if we want, or we could use the law of cosines with the side information like we did a couple of days ago. It doesn't matter. So I'll just write down, now we can use either law of sines or cosines. Whoops, I should have put an E in there, to calculate angle. Let's calculate angle A. Oops, double angle in there. Calculate angle A. All right, so I guess law of sines is a little bit easier to use. So we'll use that. Let's get it a little blurry here. Okay, so if we want to calculate angle A, we say A over the sine of A is equal to B over the sine of B, because we have those three pieces of information. So A is 8. We don't know what angle A is. Little b is 5.2, and angle B is 40 degrees. So 8 times the sine of 40 degrees divided by 5.2 is equal to the sine of A. So we'll put that in our calculator. 8 sine of 40 divided by 5.2, and the sine of A is equal to 0.9889. And so if we do second sine of that answer, we're going to get angle A is 81.45 or 81.5. Let's round the degrees to the nearest degree. So angle A is approximately equal to 81 degrees. So we'll put 81 in our chart. And now all we have to do is add those two and subtract it from 180. So 81 plus 40 is 121, and 180 minus 121 is equal to 59. So now we've solved the triangle. We have all three angles and all three sides, and we're done with that problem. So that's one situation. What if you're given the situation where, second example, let's say we have a triangle that we're given, let's say side. Let's say we've got 12 here, 14 here, and 16 here, side. And we don't know what these angles are. Okay, so there's your second example. So let's see what law we're going to use on this to solve this triangle. Well, let's call it ABC. And 14 is A, B is 16, C is 12. So we can't fill in any of these angles. We don't know those, but we know A is 14, B is 16, and C is 12. So now we'll use our little trick, and it looks like we can't fill in a complete row. We don't have a complete...
Derek Ragland,
Sorry
please
about this.
call extension 3719. Derek Ragland, please call extension 3719.
Okay, so we can't use the law of sines again. I'll just go LOS for law of sines. So must use the law of cosines. So the law of cosines says, let's just figure out which one we're going. It doesn't really matter which angle we find first. Let's use the law of cosines. It's usually the best idea to find the largest angle first. So the largest angle would be angle B. So if we wanted to find angle B, then we set up the law of cosines starting with a B. If we want to find angle B, we have to start out with little b. So little b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of big B, right? Whatever you start off with is either you're going to find the side B or the angle B. So because we have side information, we're going to have to use the modified law of cosines formula, which means we're going to subtract a squared from this side, subtract c squared from this side, and divide both sides by negative 2ac, and that's going to be equal to our cosine of b. That's called the modified law of cosines, I call it. You're going to have to come up with that on your own. So now all it is a matter of plugging in the numbers. 16 squared minus 14 squared minus 12 squared all over negative 2 times 14 times 12. And remember, these last two numbers match. The first one is always positive, these two are negative, and these two numbers have to match. Or you haven't set it up right. So let's put that in our calculator using the fraction button. We have 16 squared minus 14 squared minus 12 squared all over negative 2 times 14 times 12. And so we have 1/4. Oh my goodness, look at that. So 1/4 is equal to the cosine of b. Good grief. Didn't think it was going to be that easy. So now we do second cos of that angle. And angle B turns out to be 75.5. Let's round that up to 76 degrees. So if you do the inverse cos of 1/4, you get angle B, which is approximately equal to 76 degrees. So we'll fill that in for angle B, 76 degrees. And now that we have one complete row filled in, now we can use the law of sines to figure out the other angle, because the law of sines is a little easier to use. Now use, and it doesn't matter, you could have used the law of cosines. I just like sines better, it's a little faster. Law of sines to find, let's find the second largest angle, angle A. So the law of sines, because we know the B information, it says B over the sine of B is equal to A over the sine of A, because we're trying to find angle A. So from the chart up there, we have 16 over the sine of 76 is equal to 14 over the sine of A. And now when we do our cross multiplication like we do with the law of sines, that gives us 14 times the sine of 76 divided by 16 equals the sine of A. Oops. 14 sine of 76 divided by 16. So that's 0.8490. And then if you do second sine of that answer, you're going to get angle A, which is 58.1 or 58 degrees. So angle A is approximately equal to 58 degrees. So we'll put that up in our chart. So now when you add those two up and subtract from 180, 58 and 76, you get 46 degrees is the missing angle for angle C. And now we're done with that problem. And I'll give you one more example. Let's say we have this angle is equal to 41 degrees, and this angle is equal to, well, let's say it's 43 degrees. And let's say that we are given this side that's in between them. Let's say this side is 30. Okay, now we're going to solve the triangle. So let's call it ABC. Let's set up the chart, see what we have. Angle A is 41. Angle C is 43 degrees. And little b is 30. Well, what we have here, with this information, we really can't use the law of sines, but if you're given two angles, always fill in the third angle. If you know the other two. So it would be 180 degrees minus the sum of the other. So what do we have? 180 minus 41 minus 43 is 96 degrees. So angle B, it wasn't given to us, but we figured that out. Oh, I guess I'll just keep it in black. Pen, 96 degrees. So now that we have one whole row filled out, we have the row B filled out completely, we can use the law of sines. And the law of sines says, we'll start out with A. A over the sine of A is equal to B over the sine of B. A we don't know. Angle A is 41 degrees. B we were told was 30. And angle B is 96 degrees. So after we get done with our cross multiplication, 30 times the sine of 41, divide that by the sine of 96, we'll get A. (30 sine of 41 divided by the sine of 96). And A, if we round this to the nearest tenth, is 19.8. Which kind of makes sense because across from the largest angle will be the largest side. And let's see, hopefully side C will be slightly larger than 19.8, but not much. But it'll still be smaller than 30. So we have to use the law of sines again. Which says C over the sine of C is equal to B over the sine of B. Or we could have used A if we wanted to. So we don't know little c, but angle C is 43 degrees, B is 30, and angle B is 96 degrees. So if you cross multiply 30 times the sine of 43 divided by the sine of 96, that's equal to C. So we'll pull out our calculator, and 30 sine of 43 divided by the sine of 96. So little c is 20.6. That's what our calculator says. Approximately 20.6. And that makes sense because it's a little bit larger than the A, side A, which would be across from the smallest angle, but it's still less than 30, and it's in the ballpark. So there you have three situations where you have to decide whether or not you're going to use the law of sines or the law of cosines. And if you want to use this trick, you can, or if you can remember this, sometimes it's hard to remember this beyond a few days. You're going to use the law of sines when you have the following information: angle, angle, side. That was the last problem that we had. Oh no, it wasn't. Angle, side, angle was what we had with the last problem. If you know two angles, all you have to do is fill in the third angle, and then you can use the law of sines. And then we have an ambiguous case. Like what we learned yesterday when we have side, side, angle information. You're going to use the law of cosines when you have side, angle, side information for the triangle, or when you have side, side, side information for the triangle. So I think that's about it for today. We'll get some practice tomorrow on using, trying to decide which law that we use, the law of sines or the law of cosines. But here's kind of an abbreviated list of rules. If you can remember your geometry, perhaps you can remember this. But I like this little trick with the S being connected here, because that'll tell you, yes, I can use the law of sines, or no, I cannot use the law of cosines. So that's it for today, and we'll see you tomorrow, or actually Monday, depending on when you're watching this video.